Why don't you watch these clips at all?
They're too disturbing.
It's too hard.
Robyn didn't save the family. She made sure she'd be the last one standing. It's difficult to believe she's dealing with any long-term illness. If she were, it likely would have been used as an all-encompassing explanation for her lack of involvement. Her past behavior suggests she's more than willing to highlight any health concern, particularly when it can justify an action.
Oh yeah. If it wasn't for COVID, I would have gone. My biggest concern right now is how we go forward.
Just look at how she handled COVID. Extreme caution, heightened anxiety, and complete withdrawal. If there were something serious going on, it wouldn't be a quiet struggle. What's more believable is that this is simply a case of deep-rooted laziness. She avoids discipline with her children entirely.
There's this whole polygamy thing that kind of comes into play, and it totally throws off this whole thing of kicking kids out of your bed.
They continue to sleep in her bed, not out of need, but because it's easier than repeatedly guiding them back to their own.
We gotta go on boat.
Do we have our binky? You know where your binky's at?
Every single time I see Caleb and Maddie holding Ari, I'm like, this looks very natural.
Ariella still uses a pacifier at an age where most kids have long since moved on, simply because dealing with the emotional fallout would take effort. Even daily routines like waking up the kids and putting them to bed fall to Cody.
She didn't get any sleep. She's sleeping right now.
Guaranteed Robyn doesn't sleep at all. There's no way.
Meanwhile, Robyn often sleeps in late, 10 or 11 a.m., and contributes little during family activities. During camping trips, for instance, she remains seated while others manage the children and clean up. There's also a noticeable physical result of her lifestyle. Her gait, slow, awkward, almost waddling, suggests years of inactivity. There's no indication she's ever followed an exercise routine or prioritized her health in that regard. She fits a pattern that's not uncommon. Adults who've never developed independence or initiative, content to live off others, enabled by those around them. The only difference is that she found someone willing to finance and support that lifestyle fully.
Cody is the dad.
Cody, once charismatic and occasionally introspective, now directs all his energy into parenting Robyn's children, perhaps trying to compensate for his absence in the lives of his other kids. Robyn, for her part, seems to believe she's fulfilled her role by giving him those children, and that's the end of her contribution.
Sister Wife's Closet.
The most notable endeavor she ever attempted was a short-lived business, one that never gained momentum, despite her claims of commitment. Beyond that, she rarely initiates or engages in anything dynamic. Any memorable family activity, dirt biking, traveling, even basic outdoor events, has her in the background, participating passively or not at all. One detail that continues to resurface is her rumored purchase of an extensive doll collection, allegedly costing tens of thousands. If she ever openly addressed it, if she framed it as a hobby, admitted to retail therapy, or shared her interest, it could offer a rare moment of relatability or humor. Instead, she tends to deflect or retreat into a narrative of victimhood when challenged.
From the beginning, Robyn appeared willing to blend into the larger family, to contribute and participate. But once a stable environment was secured, she withdrew. Since then, her energy seems to go solely into acquiring more things, more attention, more support, with no effort to reciprocate. Both she and Cody seem caught in a cycle of consumerism and self-isolation, feeding each other's avoidance and justifying their distance from the broader family.
I started my Sister Wife's Closet over 10 years ago, selling jewelry and other things. I put the business on hold, but the cart's not disabled.
Robyn comes across not just as unmotivated, but as fundamentally uninterested in growth, engagement, or accountability. The passivity, the constant deflection, and her lack of meaningful contribution define her presence and continue to alienate her from viewers and family alike. Mary didn't approve, and Cody didn't care. Here's the real story behind the second wife.
I remember just shortly after I had met Cody and we kind of started dating, I wanted to introduce him to Janelle.
It's undeniably an odd situation, Janelle ending up with the man who was once her sister-in-law's husband. It's no surprise that Mary struggled with it. Given how tense their relationship was from the start, Expecting her to be fine with it seems unrealistic.
Her brother and I eventually did get married, but it lasted only about 11 months. It was a very short marriage.
Janelle had been married to Mary's brother for just a year before leaving him, and then marrying Mary's husband. That alone is enough to raise eyebrows. But then comes the detail that the wedding was originally planned for Mary's birthday. It's difficult to see that as anything other than deeply insensitive, if not outright antagonistic. The narrative often frames Janelle as a passive figure caught in the middle, but the facts paint a more complicated picture. She actively entered into a marriage where the first wife clearly wasn't welcoming her.
20 years ago, I married Mary, and then 17 years ago, I married Janelle.
That choice, whether driven by belief, strategy, or personal conviction, set the tone for years of subtle conflict.
I think relationships are complex. Plural relationships are more complex.
It wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a foundational fracture. The broader context adds another layer.
Having a new wife come into a family is extremely complex.
These insular communities often involve complex and overlapping family ties, with higher than average rates of intermarriage. Within that environment, these types of tangled relationships aren't entirely out of the norm, but that doesn't make them any less complicated or emotionally charged. In the end, the dynamic between Mary and Janelle was never about one being cruel and the other being innocent.
Maybe it's just good. It's a good time for us to learn how to connect better, she and I one-on-one.
It was two very different people with very different approaches. One direct and outspoken, the other strategic and reserved.
Like have an intervention with her and say like, look, deal with it, figure it out, and let's fix this.
Their tension didn't come out of nowhere. It was baked into the structure of their shared life from the start.
They say Janelle was cruel, but what if she was actually the one being mistreated all along? Let's clear something up. Again.
Janelle did not choose Mary's birthday to marry Cody. She didn't pick the date, and she certainly didn't schedule the wedding as a targeted strike on Mary.
Polygamous weddings are generally very quiet. Like, there's not a lot of people that come.
In the Apostolic United Brethren, AUB, spiritual marriages happen on one specific day each month.
But the weddings versus the ceremony versus the wedding receptions.
Couples don't get to choose the date. They don't walk into leadership saying, hey, can we schedule this for my future sister wife's birthday? I really want to start things off on the most hostile foot possible. That's not how it works.
Tonight we're actually celebrating Dayton and Mary's birthday.
It just happened that the one designated day that month fell on Mary's birthday. Was that unfortunate? Sure, but it wasn't a personal attack. In fact, Janelle and Cody received permission to move the ceremony to a different day that same month, a detail that tends to get conveniently overlooked.
So this week is pretty busy for us. Dayton and Mary share a birthday, and then Janelle and I have our wedding anniversary, and then it's my birthday.
And yet, the claim that Janelle deliberately chose Mary's birthday continues to circulate. Why? Because it's easier to villainize Janelle when the facts are inconvenient. It shifts focus away from the reality that she endured mistreatment and emotional abuse, and instead frames her as someone who somehow deserved it. Even in a hypothetical world where Janelle had pushed for that specific date, it still wouldn't excuse what followed. But the truth remains, she didn't choose it. Now, there's one valid question that lingers. Why not wait a month? That's fair. Janelle and Cody didn't seem to consider how bad the timing looked, or they chose not to care. So yes, they moved forward that month. But they didn't handpick the exact date, and implying otherwise misrepresents how the process actually works.
So this week, we have Mary's birthday and Dayton's birthday both on the same day. Then Janelle and I have our wedding anniversary. 2 days later is my birthday.
Could they have waited out of courtesy? Absolutely. Should they have? Probably. But assigning malicious intent to what was more likely insensitivity or tunnel vision doesn't change the facts. It's also true they were courting without telling Mary, and Cody himself admitted to behavior that was inappropriate. Janelle may not have intended to hurt anyone, but she did make questionable choices. Still, that doesn't mean every part of the story needs to be twisted into a personal vendetta. Here's what they don't want you to see about Robyn's role on the show. By now, it's difficult not to question why Robyn remains on the show at all. She contributes so little, it's like watching someone attend a job they resent while still cashing the paycheck.
Stop it. I can't watch this. I can't watch this.
Refusing to watch clips or answer questions during interviews? That's not mysterious, it's unprofessional. All the awkward scripted moments and off-road melodrama aside, the real issue is her refusal to engage.
Why don't you watch these clips at all?
They're too disturbing. It's too hard.
Participating fully is part of the role, and yet she treats it like an unfair burden. If there's no interest in contributing meaningfully, there should be consequences. Participation shouldn't be optional when you're being paid to show up. Her minimal involvement now raises the question, is she still considered a regular part of the cast? Or has her role quietly shifted to background appearances?
I know there's a lot of accusations from the boys, about me, and they're false.
Because her presence adds little beyond a string of vague statements and repeated, I don't know responses.
The kids talk to him about Robyn, or I talk to him, it's like he just doesn't want to go there. That's his sacred cow. She's perfect.
There's a sense she views herself as untouchable, placed on a pedestal and immune to criticism. The dynamic with Cody only reinforces this, with his over-the-top praise and romantic idealism fueling a version of reality that doesn't quite align with what's unfolding on screen. Eventually, that illusion will collapse under its own weight.
I am following the rules very, very closely. Why in the world would anybody think that I'm somehow behind this?
What's more revealing is how her behavior now reflects what others likely experienced behind the scenes: stonewalling, deflection, and a carefully maintained image.
I think that Robyn definitely has a victim complex.
The subtle manipulation isn't speculation anymore, it's playing out in real time. And it's not flattering. If someone offers nothing to a group dynamic and avoids the central conversations, what value are they adding? The situation becomes even more ironic considering how dependent that lifestyle appears to be on the income the show generates. Acting detached from the very thing that sustains you doesn't exactly inspire sympathy. The message she projects is clear. I'm above the conflict. I won't comment on others. Even if they comment on me, I'll just stay quiet, stay sweet, and let the rest unfold. But there's a limit to how long that act can hold interest.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry. I was trying to help, I'll shut up.
Silence, when you're supposed to speak, doesn't come across as grace, it looks like avoidance. And when someone refuses to even look at relevant footage they're directly involved in, it starts to feel less like discretion and more like deflection. If you're here, be here. Otherwise, maybe it's time to reconsider why you're still in the picture at all. Never trust a man who insists on naming the entire family after himself.
My name is Cody Brown.
Why call it the Cody Brown family instead of just the Brown family? Using Cody's full name feels like an unnecessary flex, a quiet way of reasserting control and keeping himself front and center. It isn't merely a label, it's a message.
The Cody Brown family.
Some might argue it's to distinguish from other Brown families. Given the number of relatives, that's plausible. Brown is a common surname after all. But in certain religious communities, especially among some Mormon groups, it's not unusual for the man's full name to become the family's identity. It's not universal, not even a majority practice, but it's common enough that it doesn't always raise eyebrows.
And then we spent the last 6 months aggressively writing this.
Still, in this case, the naming feels deliberate. The document included everyone's signatures. There was no risk of confusing it with another Brown family. It wasn't about clarity, it was about ego.
This is just a marital contract for the sake of being able to adopt the children.
There's also a financial angle. Associating everything with Cody's name makes it harder for anyone else, brothers, cousins, extended family, to stake a claim.
She's totally against polygamy.
One relative even gained a following for challenging the official story, revealing what really happened before the fame took over. But with the name so tightly controlled, so was the narrative. What if Robyn isn't the victim, but the villain of the entire story?
A couple of years as the kids have gotten older.
It's honestly striking. Despite everything Robyn has said over the years and all the accusations she's thrown, her ex-husband and his entire family have remained completely silent. Not a word, not a whisper. In a world where everyone's eager to set the record straight, his total lack of response is practically a superpower. Why hasn't he spoken up, especially after being publicly trashed for over a decade?
Say, look, I will relinquish my rights so that Cody can adopt the kids. It makes it look like he's looking out for the best interests of the kids.
Possibly because not everyone wants their private life turned into reality show fodder. Some people still value privacy and dignity.
Family, and there's always been this kind of nagging concern that if Robyn were to pass,
maybe he actually has the children's best interests at heart. Staying quiet could be his way of shielding them, as opposed to those who constantly say they're concerned about the kids while broadcasting every detail of their personal chaos. It's one thing to say you care, another to show it. And then there's the issue of alienation.
Trying to get my ex to see what was going on, and now just...
Robyn reportedly turned the children against their father, just as she's distanced them from others in their extended family. Silence might be his only defense against someone who thrives on control and conflict. For some people, destruction is a pastime, and they never tire of swinging.
if their biological father is not cooperative, then I have no problem just raining down some fury.
It wouldn't be surprising if he was one of the first to challenge her. That likely earned him her full fury. Given how she's isolated her kids from the other wives and their families, it's not hard to imagine she did the same with their father.
I believe that our lawyer's been trying to serve Robyn's ex for about 4 or 5 weeks.
Sometimes you have to let things go, no matter how unfair, just to survive. Speaking up can be futile when the deck is stacked and the narrative is already written. And let's not ignore the cultural element.
Having an employer understand where I'm coming from.
In many polygamous communities, silence isn't just wise, it's ingrained. These are groups accustomed to secrecy, where discretion is part of the doctrine. For some, keeping quiet is second nature. What's especially curious is how everyone connected, his family, Robyn's former circle, even members of the broader community, has chosen the same path of silence. With all the public interest and attention, you'd think someone would have come forward with more. And yet, there's this paradox. Someone who has never gone public, never spoken out, never tried to correct the narrative, ends up being viewed more favorably than those who can't seem to stop talking. It's not so much about what he's done, it's about what he hasn't.
There may have even been legal or financial incentives at play. When Robyn and her new husband pursued adoption, perhaps silence was part of the deal. Keep quiet and child support obligations vanish. Whatever the reason, it's clear. Sometimes saying nothing at all says everything. Cody Brown didn't break Christine's heart by cheating. He did it by laughing. In Season 8, Episode 2, a pivotal exchange between Cody and Christine signals a major turning point in their relationship.
Saying, you know, dude, you really should just divorce 3 of your wives and come back to the church so you can be saved. Or
the tension centers around a comment made by Cody's longtime friend, Ken, who told Cody that he should leave 3 of your wives and return to the Mormon church for your salvation.
Sorry, I did not take that as a joke.
It's a joke.
It was not a joke.
Cody dismisses the remark as either a joke or an ignorant opinion from someone who doesn't understand their polygamous lifestyle. The other wives appear largely unbothered.
Because he called Ken to come on a family vacation. And I said, please don't. I'm not comfortable with Ken. I don't want you to do it.
Christine, however, is visibly upset by the idea that Cody would still want to see Ken on vacation, despite the clear disrespect Ken showed toward their family. Rather than acknowledge her feelings,
I do not like foot stamping and hair tossing. I don't like the princess behavior.
Cody mocks her reaction, describing it as hair-tossing princess behavior and accusing her of acting like a child who doesn't want to share. He insists she's making too much of something inconsequential, arguing that if he cut ties with everyone who disapproved of polygamy, he'd have no friends left. But for Christine, this isn't about someone merely disagreeing with their beliefs. Ken explicitly said Cody should leave her. The issue is not ideological, it's personal. Yet Cody doesn't see it that way and offers no defense of his wife.
Her ego is holding on to this so hard that it's like, ooh, here's my offense.
He goes further, blaming Christine for poisoning the family vacation, even though the meetup with Ken didn't end up happening for unrelated reasons.
I feel like everybody's mad at me.
She becomes the scapegoat, held responsible for tension that she didn't create. Later in a confessional, Christine quietly says,
I don't know how to get back to a good vacation anymore. I feel personally responsible for ruining the vacation.
I basically feel like I ruined our whole vacation. Her demeanor is notably different. Tired, resigned, and deeply hurt. It's a moment where the emotional weight becomes visible, and any spark of hope or lightness seems to fade. This confrontation signals a major shift. It reveals that Christine's emotional needs and her place in the marriage were not only misunderstood, but dismissed outright. Rather than defending her or validating her experience, Cody chose to minimize, ridicule, and isolate her. In the following episode, the damage escalates. Cody frames Christine's emotional reaction as a major disruption, turning the other wives against her and portraying her behavior as harmful to the family.
I want to be really careful here about emotional, hormonal changes and stuff like that.
He even attributes her feelings to hormonal mood swings, using a dismissive and derogatory stereotype to invalidate her entirely.
But we're okay with it now. Ken called me and apologized.
Ken, ironically, later reached out to apologize after realizing how hurtful his comment had been, showing more regard for Christine's feelings than Cody ever did in the moment.
This sequence of events highlights a deeper pattern. Cody's desire for validation from other men often seems to outweigh his willingness to protect or support his wives emotionally. He's reluctant to confront male friends, even when they openly insult his family, yet quick to criticize and diminish the women in his life. The dynamic here suggests more than just a marital disagreement. It underscores a profound imbalance. Christine was seeking acknowledgement, respect, and protection. Cody responded with condescension and deflection. The emotional disconnect was no longer ignorable. This moment did not create the rift between them, but it crystallized it. It exposed the hollow space where partnership should have been, a space Christine had been trying to fill alone for far too long. Truth hits different, right? Drop a like sub if you vibe. Ta-ta from Elena.